Hello and welcome back. So we're on now assignment 7, which means that we are going to cover the third step of the hypnotherapy process. So let's have a quick recap of what we've already done. Number 1, bonding. So now we have some real skills that you can practice of how to create a great relationship with people, more specifically your clients, how to help them feel comfortable, and the word that we're really looking for with bonding, what it creates, the outcome that we are looking for is trust. We want them to feel comfortable and relaxed and to trust you on a conscious level and to like you on a conscious level so that the subconscious mind will feel free and there'll be no guards up that thinks that it needs to protect the client in any way. Okay, so bonding, number 1. Number 2, we have the consultation. So now we know, we have a very clear idea of the type of questions we can ask, why we should ask them, and how we can dig down deeper and what we're looking for. We're looking for commitment. We're looking for powerful intent from your client, and that is shown through emotions. And the more emotional they are, and the more conflict that they can describe to you, I'm like this, but I want to be like that. I do this all the time, and I know it's wrong, and I know that it's not good for me. The more that you hear of that, the more that you know that they're ready to make change. So now we're at the point where we do the pre-talk. What's the pre-talk for? Well, let's do some slides. So the definition of pre-talk: the most important time to create trust is by speaking to the client's fears and misconceptions and discussing what to expect during the session. So, when your client closes their eyes, which is in the next step, which is step 4, which is the induction, when they close their eyes at that point, if they have any questions about what to expect, that is what they will be thinking about. So we need to cover all the misconceptions that a client may have about hypnotherapy, hypnosis, stage hypnosis, to help them feel nice and relaxed so they have a clear idea of what to expect. If we don't cover them, they might have a false idea and it can be a self-fulfilling prophecy, and they can create that. Or they could get to the end of the session and say to you, this isn't what I expected. And their expectation of the session, if it's different from their reality, then they might think they're not getting what they should be getting. So to make sure your client very clearly understands what to expect during the hypnotic process and the trance. And some people need more explanation than others. Why? Because we have left hemisphere people and right hemisphere people. What does that mean? I mean, everybody has a left and right hemisphere. However, some people are predominantly more analytical. So they're going to need the explanation. And your scientific explanation that we learned in the previous assignments is a great way to reassure those clients. Now, a right hemisphere person that's more creative and more intuitive, they will be feeling how you make them feel rather than using the words to construct and to answer questions. They will just be sat there, I feel good, so therefore I trust you. But with more analytical people, that's not how their brain works. So we have to adapt our approach to each individual. And by knowing who you are, you can also adapt yourself to your individual clients. Why is a pre-talk essential? Managing your clients' expectations is important, as we've just discussed. If you don't manage them, they'll manage their own. And that means they might come to a different conclusion than the one that is reality. And the last one, explain what to expect from a hypnotherapy session. And hypnotherapy is using hypnosis. Hypnosis is an artificial way to create trance. And you can explain the brain waves, as we did when we did the previous assignments, and how you are moving them from the beta frequency into the lower frequency, and how it's a normal, everyday part of life. We go in and out of trance all day long. When we daydream, when we read a book, when we are in the car driving, we can go into a trance state. Even the things that you do when you eat are programmed. When you go to the supermarket, you might go down exactly the same aisles in exactly the same format to get to the cashier. Everything we do is automated in our life. And that means that we're in a trance state. And being in a trance state allows the conscious mind to daydream. Daydreaming is something we need to reintroduce to society because it's neutral mode. And when the car is constantly in first and second and third and fourth and fifth and some people sixth, then you don't get time to relax. Even just before bed. If you're not switching off, what happens? You can't sleep because your hormones are racing through your body. So going into neutral mode and daydreaming and allowing yourself to relax is beneficial, it's important, and it's a normal, everyday, natural state. So again, going back to this diagram of the division of the mind, we have the conscious mind and the critical faculty barrier. And then the subconscious mind is the part of you that distinguishes between reality and fiction. And in fact, when you go to the cinema, if you watch an action film, you are, in fact, suspending your disbelief, which means that you are lowering your critical faculty barrier. And I don't know if you've noticed this about action films, like James Bond recently, or over the last 10 years, all of the stunts have become so much more exaggerated than they ever have been. Cars flying off bridges and landing on the other side of canyons, and guns that never seem to run out of bullets. But does anybody stand up in the middle of these films at cinemas and say, actually, that isn't going to happen? And I don't believe that. That's not possible. No, because everybody suspends their disbelief. They lower their critical faculty barrier. And everybody, when they go to watch a film at the cinema, actually goes into a trance mode where the subconscious doesn't know the difference between reality and fiction. And that's what's going to happen with your clients. But to get there has to be trust. Important. So the 4 keys to preparing for trance, the pre-talk. You can say to your client, don't expect to feel hypnotized. That sentence completely negates any misconceptions they may have of being hypnotized by saying, don't expect to feel hypnotized. Do expect to feel relaxed. You are in control. Trance is about learning for some. What does that mean? Well, some people go into trance very easily. It's a very normal, everyday part. The more creative people are, the easier it will be to go into trance. The more analytical people are, the more difficult it can be, not necessarily always, it can be for them to go into trance. You may wander in and out of what I'm saying, and that's normal. And some people, when they start thinking, when they're in a trance state, and they don't hear what you say, they may then think, is it going to work because I've not heard everything? So you can reassure your clients by telling them their subconscious mind is listening to everything that I say, even if your conscious mind wanders in and wanders back out. And when you're doing more scripted hypnotherapy, the chances of that happening are significantly increased. Why? Because the type of hypnotherapy that you're currently doing, which is the basic beginner level, module 1 of 6 modules, is purely one way. You're just talking to your client's subconscious mind. And then when you go into module 2, you will then learn how to communicate with your client's conscious mind and their subconscious, and know how to get replies from your client's subconscious mind. And then there's a 3-way negotiation that goes on. That's more advanced hypnotherapy. You may lose sensation of your body also. So some people lose their physical sensation to their body. Some people don't. There's no right or wrong. Now, very, very few people, and I've only ever had one in the 14 years of my career, actually get body catalepsy, which means that they are unable to move their body whilst they're in trance. Now, if that does happen, you can suggest to these people after you find out, which means at the end of the first session, and if there ever does need to be a second session, you can suggest to that person that they can and are able to move their body freely whilst they are in a trance state. Very easy suggestion to make, very effective. So let's go into each one of these keys individually. Don't expect to feel hypnotized. Many people come to a hypnotherapist thinking that there is something about trance which is remarkably different from their normal state of consciousness. This is definitely not the case. A light trance will likely feel no different from relaxation, which is very true. And can everybody be hypnotized? As I already described to you the story about Dave, who had the coffee shop, who wanted to remember his childhood. And you probably will remember that during the session he was doing this. Because at the moment when he was in the memory of being a child, he was currently having a pillow fight with his brother, and the feathers went all over the room. And in the memory, his physical body in the present moment was reacting. Isn't that interesting? So key 1, continue, don't expect to feel hypnotized. Since trance is a normal, natural state, that clients will likely feel a sensation of familiarity, no matter how deep in trance they go, apart from those who lose total awareness of their body. You can suggest, don't expect to feel hypnotized. Trance is not about feeling unconscious. It is a normal, natural state. Do expect to feel relaxed. Hypnosis is a natural state where you feel increasing levels of relaxation. During the trance induction, you need to know that you are in charge. And at any point, they can open their eyes and get up. There's nothing stopping them from doing that. And by giving them and by explaining that, they are not having to think, am I still in control? So by offering the information before the session, you've cleared all the questions away. You only accept suggestions that are given that are consistent with your own internal values and beliefs. Now, as a suggestive hypnotherapist, which you're training in now as in module 1, you can create the suggestions with your client and find out if they're happy with the suggestions before you actually use them. Trance is a natural, everyday state. Everyone experiences trance at least twice a day. So when you wake up in the morning, you actually go from a sleeping state through trance into full waking consciousness. And trance is also known as the theta and the alpha state. Back to the beta frequency, and then throughout the day, if you don't daydream, or you don't have a conversation that is on record, or you don't read a chapter of a book and get to the end and realize that you've actually not read any of the words because you were thinking about what you're going to cook for dinner, or when you're talking to somebody, you've totally zoned out and gone to a different dimension. Yep, that's also going into trance. So if you don't do any of those and you just wake up and go to sleep, you've only done it twice that day. And one day you will only ever do it once. Sad but true. People who fight induced trance generally don't want to change, don't trust you or the process. So if you find that somebody's not going into trance very easily, and how do we know that? Because we have the physical signs to look for. So if they are fighting it, or they're sabotaging it by opening their eyes constantly, or fidgeting, or saying, it's too cold in this room, or I can hear the air conditioning running, or can you hear that dog barking down the street? All of these things they can switch off if they want. I'm sure they've fallen asleep in front of a TV before now, as most people have. And we have the ability to switch off our hearing and all our senses to go into a state of sleep when we want to. And it's the same for hypnosis. If people don't want to go into trance, they won't, because all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. They are actually taking themselves into trance. You're not doing it. You're suggesting they go to trance. But to actually act on it is their choice completely. Next, we're going to discuss the suggestibility test. Now, if you were at another academy, they would be showing you so many different suggestibility tests. And the only thing that I can tell you is that having been a full-time hypnotherapist for many years and trained hundreds of hypnotherapists, interactive hypnotherapy, we don't focus very heavily on the suggestibility test. And it comes a lot from stage hypnosis, and a lot of academies just add it in and they do show you lots of different types of suggestibility tests because they can, and it works. And yes, and it does tell you the difference between somebody that is more suggestible than another person. However, if somebody calls you up, and I want you to think about this for a moment, somebody's been living with something that's not helping them in their life. In fact, they will have come to the conclusion that there's a better way of living, a better way of being that's going to create more health, wealth, and happiness in their life. And they've probably thought very hard about who they're going to see. And then they hear a story about you and how successful you are and how you help people make change in one session. And it might be another year before they actually call you. And then they might pick the phone up and put the phone down and think, oh, I'm not ready yet. And then maybe they need to hear of another hypnotherapist, but then for them to make the contrast and realize, no, I prefer the first guy. And then they call you up. And then they're listening intently to you as an individual. Is this person an authority? Can I trust this person? Are they describing and making me feel comfortable? Are they describing the process of hypnotherapy in a professional way? Can I afford this person? They're making all these calculations in their head, and some people without even realizing it. And many people have situations in their life, and it's not for a week later that, oh, that's why I did that. Oh, that's why I didn't like that person. Because a lot of things that happen on a cognitive basis in our mind happen so fast that we just come to a feeling and a conclusion without analyzing how we got there. So when that person calls you up, and they are subconsciously analyzing you as a person, your integrity, how ethical you are, how professional you are, and at the very end, they're going to want to know if they can afford your service. And hopefully, you are advertising your price to the right market, and that you have an ability that is in line with the amount of money you're charging, so that the value is equally exchanged. That's all that money is. And I can charge up to $500 for a 60 to 90 minute session. But I know they're going to get a result. And I also know that they're going to be a good value exchange. And we're going to talk about value at the end of the training and what you can charge. This person's been through this massive amount of process, and then he's made an appointment with you. And he's taken time out of his busy day, his schedule, his normal schedule, to confront a deepest, darkest fear, negative belief, a phobia, a habit. And that morning it's on their mind. And they get and use whatever transport they need to get to your office or to your practice. Maybe it's from home. Maybe it's a long distance away. And now they're sat in front of you. Do you need to put them through more hoops by doing suggestibility tests? No, absolutely not. Because they've done enough. And these other academies that teach you all these different suggestibility tests, putting their arms out, and it's not needed. And I don't use it in my practice, and I consider myself quite accomplished as a hypnotherapist. And if I don't need to do it, then you don't need to do it. But I'm going to teach you anyway. Why? Because if you bump into another hypnotherapist and they talk about suggestibility tests, you need to know what you're talking about. And you will. So a suggestibility test is to access the ability of a person to assess their trance state. Why use a suggestibility test? Indicates the ability and willingness of a person to go into a trance state. Well, actually, their willingness has already been demonstrated. They're sat in front of you. And what is more important, rather than a suggestibility test, is to know this one thing. Every single person that closes their eyes, categorically, scientifically proven, their brain waves are lowering from the beta frequency into the lower alpha frequency. So they're already starting the process. Their willingness is actually indicated by them closing their eyes. And a line that I frequently like to use with my clients is this. When you're ready to start the session and let go of what you no longer need, you'll find that you can close your eyes. Now that is an indirect suggestion. I'm going to cover suggestions in a later assignment. And I wanted to share that with you now because it's very applicable and it's easy to replace instead of a suggestibility test. Why? Because they're closing their eyes of their own free will. And what's even more fascinating, by asking that question, is some clients just look at me and I smile. Because I know they're thinking if they're ready or not. Because if they close their eyes, that's an indication that they're ready to start. And the ones that close their eyes straight away, great. Suggestibility test done. I know the willingness is there. I've already described to them what trance is and how hypnotherapy works and how the subconscious mind works. They know all of that. I've already reassured them with lots of client stories of how extreme circumstances that have created negative emotions that people lived with for a long period of time have been let go of immediately. So they know all of this. And when you're ready to start the process, you can close your eyes. Perfect. The results will depend on the individual. Absolutely, a suggestibility test will. And if you do test somebody's suggestibility, this is something that will happen. If you were to have 20 people in a room, 20 people will all go into different levels of trance at different states. And I've tried this countless amount of times. And what I have seen is people fight a suggestibility test by struggling not to respond to the test. And that in itself indicates that they are going into trance. Isn't that amazing? So what I'd like to do is now teach you a suggestibility test. And this is called the bucket and balloon exercise. So what I'd like to do now is ask you to listen to this disclaimer. If you're operating heavy machinery or you're driving a car and your full attention cannot be applied to what I'm saying next, please stop what you're doing and make sure you're in a safe place that you can close your eyes and follow my instructions for a few moments, and then you can continue what you were doing before. Hopefully you're sat at a desk or somewhere comfortable anyway, and you're just watching this video. So if you can you can just listen to what I'm saying. If you'd like to put your laptop down and make sure you're sat up in an upright position, that you're balanced, because in a minute I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. You're just sat nice and free, nothing in your hands, feet on the floor, you have your balance, you're nice and sturdy. And what I'd like you to do now, and lift up your arms, shoulder width apart, and when you're ready, you can close your eyes. And now your eyes are closed, you can feel that instantaneous sense of relaxation that can grow, can't it? Or it can wait to grow. And I'm interested to know what level of relaxation you're at now, and allowing that to continue as you listen to the words that I'm using, becoming more aware that your left arm and your right arm are up in front of you. And imagine in your right arm that you're holding a container, the handle of a container, and choose any color container that you want. And imagine somebody stood next to you. That person has a big container of water and they're pouring all their water into your container. And you can see the reflection of the light as the water goes in and swirls around the bottom. And you can feel your right arm is starting to feel slightly strained, and that's okay, it's normal and manageable. And as the container starts to fill further and further with more water and more water, now I want you to take your attention to your left arm and see a big helium balloon. And I wonder what colour that balloon is. Now see someone tying this balloon with a piece of string around your wrist. And feel this balloon tugging in the air as your right arm feels so light and relaxed. And maybe we can tie another balloon around your left wrist and feel the difference between your left arm and your right arm. And you can feel the slight strain in your right shoulder, but this time it's still comfortable. And feel how your left arm is floating higher and higher, feeling so relaxed and so calm. Now at this point, you may notice that your arms are slightly further apart. I want you to keep your arms exactly where they are and open your eyes. And what you may notice is that there was a slight difference. And some of you, there would have been a bigger difference. And maybe some of you were exactly the same, but we only did that for a few moments. And if we carried on, and you can do it in your own time, just close your eyes and imagine a bucket of water and imagine a balloon and keep on doing it until you feel an effect, until you start to notice your critical faculty barrier has started to diminish, and allow your subconscious mind to take over. And that is a suggestibility test. And there are many different types. And now you know. And this brings us to the end of assignment 7. I hope you're enjoying your learnings and these tutorials on hypnotherapy. and that you're following each of these videos methodically. Please be aware that you can email at any point to get more assistance. If there's anything we can do to help you, get in touch. Otherwise, I'll see you on the next video. Take care.